welcome everyone. I was just asked to try to start the program. We are waiting for a few more people, but you can hear it from the live stream. I'd really like to thank Shrikar Prabhu for singing so beautifully for the last hour.
Where can we get the link to the live stream?
What's that?
Where can we get the link to the live stream?
It's on the NYC Harinam YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
Arjun Krishna Prabhu playing Mridanga. He's one of the senior most people we've had at 24-hour Kirtan. He served tirelessly for a long time. In history of 24-hour Kirtan department, Aindra Prabhu was there for 24 years. The Russian devotee Adiras Prabhu, he was there for probably about 12 years. Maybe Daru Prabhu from Nepal. He's been there for long. He's still there forever. But he has one of the top scores of 12 years in the ashram. It's no small thing. Anyway, Jai, I think we were going to start with a video of Aindra Prabhu. Is there somebody here that can operate that? Served many years worshipping Aindra Prabhu, Shaladam Shiva Dasa.
Please remember, and I beseech you again and again, please remember, worldwide ISKCON grassroots Nam Sankirtan revolution. Revolution means revolution. It means we have to shed pounds and gallons of blood to get the job done. We have to turn this movement inside out, upside down, whatever we have to do, but we have to put Nam Sankirtan back into its rightful place of dignity in the forefront of our movement. It's absolutely essential for the proper growth of our movement. Those who understood this are awake to the need of the hour, and those who have not understood it are still sleeping. It's time to wake up and understand what is the responsibility of every man, woman, and child in this movement. To take seriously that Dharma which Lord Chaitanya himself inaugurated for the deliverance of all the fallen conditioned souls. For the rest of this Kali Yuga, there's another 427,000 years left to Kali Yuga. The Yuga Dharma doesn't change. The next Yuga is Satya Yuga. And for them, contemplative, peaceful meditation is where it's at. But in Kali Yuga, you got to get fired up. Every one of you, fired up, chanting, dancing from the heart, like you really mean it, like you really want Lord Chaitanya's mercy, so that you can even think, you can even hope to go back home, back to Godhead in this one lifetime. It's not a joke, it's the real thing. So stand up and do what's right. Do the real thing. Perform Nam Sankirtan daily, every day, for as many hours as possible. And you'll get there. I guarantee it. Not that I guarantee it. Lord Chaitanya has guaranteed it. The soul has to go back home, back to Godhead, and the way that's going to happen is if the soul agrees to engage all of his psychophysical energies and his whole heart in the performance of Sneha Samyukta Harinam Sankirtan. Sneha means with affection, Samyukta means complete engagement. Full on, fired up, and back home, back to Godhead in this one lifetime. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama. Kalona Steva Nastiva Nastiva Viramita. Hare
That's the only thing I can think of.
Anyway, it's beautiful to have the opportunity to glorify Aindra Prabhu, most illustrious personality. After Aindra Prabhu passed away, a lot of people were glorifying Aindra Prabhu, and one of the short and simple glorifications that I always remember that was so like, yes, that's right, was His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. He said, in the whole history, wow, yes.
So you should sit up there.
I was just introducing.
Anyone who's going to speak is going to sit up there.
You're the speaker, so.
Should I
Everybody
say?
has to really bring the chair.
I wasn't really thinking I was speaking.
Bring another chair.
It's natural, man. You're a natural leader right now.
Mr. Two?
Maybe you should speak first.
First, last.
So what I was remembering was His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, who passed away. He said very wonderfully, he said, in the whole history of ISKCON and in the whole history of the Gaudiya Math, there is only one Aindra Prabhu. Sorry, I don't know what to say at these programs, to be honest. I was thinking a lot about Aindra Prabhu, the things that he taught us, things that I feel like I learned from him personally. Aindra Prabhu he had the heart of a Vaishnava. And if you'll read his book, he's always talking about deepening the internal quest in Krishna consciousness. There can be a type of obstacle in Krishna consciousness if we become somewhat externally oriented with just kind of accomplishing the ritualistic tasks of our path, but in a mechanical way, without having the spirit, the heart of devotion. And I was thinking Aindra Prabhu, just on such an incredible level, manifested the heart of a Vaishnava. And I was thinking of different ways. On the way here, my wife asked me to think of stories where it showed how Aindra Prabhu is really nice. And I thought of a few stories. One thing, Aindra Prabhu somehow he was always interested in upgrading the quality of one's devotional offering to get more benefit. There's so many ways he was talking about that. So one I thought of was, first of all, residence in Vrindavan. By residence in Vrindavan, all the activities you do is multiplied 100 times. In Kartik, it's multiplied 1,000 times. When it came time for offering lamps, especially Purushottam Mas, Kartik Mas, he had this point that he must have read in Shastra that if you offer the lamp with a tulsi stick, you get 100 or 1,000 times the benefit. So it's offering 1,000 times the benefit. So it's offering 1,000 lamps if you offer with the tulsi stick. Just recently, someone posted. It's quite heavy, but Sandesh asked Aindra Prabhu, after you pass away, what are your wishes? And there was a thing that Aindra had read that if in the funeral pyre there's even one speck of tulsi, then that person will go back to Godhead.
The problem with Tulsi Mahotsava, no matter how simple a person is, it's just one piece of Tulsi wood. So he said, I want as much Tulsi wood in that fire as possible.
Yeah, so right, so it's it says just even if there's a speck of tulsi, that person will go back to Godhead. So his first point was, I want as much tulsi in the fire as possible. And when his father was passing away, that was like the late 90s or 2000?
2002, 3. It happened at a time when Damodar March was going back to the States, and he carried a letter.
I remember. I wish we still had a copy of that. Aindra Prabhu had, his father was passing away, and somehow his family members tracked down that Aindra Prabhu who had joined Hare Krishna movement and moved to India, where he was, and with the new name, how to track him. And so Aindra Prabhu did get the message. He told me at one point that about the dreams he had, but I think he's spoken about that,
It was that he really thought, I have a new life. I've moved on, I've given up my family, and then he had a dream where I believe it was a host of saintly persons saying that your father was a fallen disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and your duty is to deliver him.
Yeah, you took birth in this family. That was the arrangement for your father.
You give some background about Aindra's father and the family environment. They were kind of like pre-hippie beatniks. Their farmhouse was where everybody would come and groove on like bluegrass and folk music, and smoke marijuana. And when Aindra got his Bhagavad Gita, he was enthusiastic to show it to his father, and his father told him, "Son, you don't know, but I read that many years ago."
And he said,
and then when he's driving him to the temple of Easter Sunday, Easter Sunday is on 2 or 3 weeks from now. That's the anniversary of Aindra joining. So his father is asking him from Haymarket to Washington. It's like a 1 hour drive. He said, "Son, don't you think you're going to be limiting yourself by monastic life?" And what did Aindra say?
He said, "It would appear like I'm limiting myself, but actually,
if I can get to the door of unlimited life, to the limited life of monastic life." And he understood that, and then he let me go. Okay.
So, thank you. That was great. There's a statement, probably Hari Bhakti Vilas, I forgot, where it talks about the benefit of worshiping different Shalagram Shilas. And there's a thing, if someone will worship a Shalagram Shila, oh, there's so much benefit. And then if you'll also worship with the Dwarka Shila, oh my God, it's so much more benefit. And if you'll worship 2 Shalagram Shilas with a Dwarka Shila, oh, it's something like that. Do you remember more better?
I thought we were still talking about his father passing away and Aindra writing the letter.
Oh, yeah, we were. Sorry.
So after Aindra had that dream, then his younger brother John, who looks just like him, he was like 12 years younger or something, and he actually came and visited the Potomac Temple and was, after Aindra passed away. So he was corresponding with him, and he asked, what choice has our father made? How wants his body taken care of? And he said, "Be cremated." Acha. And then he took off his own personal Tulsi necklace beads, and he closed that, and he wrote the letter, "Please accept this as a gift of love from your long-lost son, and please wear these." And he instructed his brother, make sure that he's wearing this when he's put into cremation. So then Aindra felt, I have done my duty to deliver my father. Right.
Yeah, there's something else I'm going to say. But the point was how he's always thinking to
magnify his
Now you
a statement. I read this so many years ago, so I forgot. But a few Shalagram Shilas and the Dwarka Shila, the benefit is just immense. And if someone will worship 12 Shalagram Shilas
right
with
the
a
minimum.
with the Dwarka Shila, like the benefit is indescribably immense. And so Aindra ended up worshiping like
the different personalities. One in particular would just come and give at a time. And what was Aindra's outlook on the Shalagram Shilas? That Shalagram Shilas from the Kali Gandaki in Nepal, and it's not an incarnation of Vishnu, it's Krishna, Rajendranandana, Shyam-Sundar himself, and that I can only worship Shyam-Sundar when cutting through the temple politics and the Pujari department politics for maybe 2 hours a few times a week, but there's no limit to how much blackishness I can have in my life. So he's just surrounding himself. And then also that they know that I've taken up residence in Vrindavan. And actually, after he got his citizenship, I went with him that day with Dwarkanath to pay to Greece the final, that inflation, minus 5,000 rupees. At that time, it was 500 rupees for the final clerk. And then anybody here ever graduated high school and get like a diploma and like a thing, so you think it was like that was a certificate. And it was like, mid-afternoon, and we came back to the temple, and Aindra just went right on the altar, the fruit offering, the doors are still closed, and I went with him, and he put his head, on all the deities, but especially Radha Shyam-Sundar, and he like put the certificate at their lotus feet, and I think he took it away before the doors. That would have been something if they would have been darshan. Aindra's citizenship certificate there, but he was like crying, and then he led the kirtan the whole time from the 4:15 or 4:30 all the way till it was summertime, 7 o'clock, and he was like in ecstasy. It was a really good kirtan. So after that, then the Shalagrams really started pouring in. So he said, I'm living in Vrindavan, and these poor orphan Shalagrams want to come live with me, and how can I deny them? I'm giving them. And that's why he was resolute, I'm not going to give anyone. People would come and beg, can I have just one Shalagram? Or he'd always be very on guard. Somebody will maybe come in the room and try to steal a Shalagram. Because then, who knows what's going to happen to them, the Shalagrams that are taken out of Vrindavan, or, there's some devotees, some even devotee leaders have in the airport, they turn their back and, if you ever have to go to, and you bring your valuables, there's a hook on the door. Don't put it there because somebody could just come from the other side and whoosh, and before you get your clothes back on, they're gone and all your stuff is stolen. So I just thought of things like that. I'm staying in Vrindavan. No.
There's one devotee he was maybe a Russian devotee, but I forgot his name now, that told me that there were two devotees, one was a disciple of Govinda Maharaj, one was a disciple of Avirbhava Maharaj, and all on their own mission, they went to Nepal, to the Kali Gandaki, and they collected hundreds of Shilas, and then came back to Vrindavan and said Guru Maharaj, we have all of these Shilas, please bless us to worship all these Shilas. And their gurus were like, are you out of your mind? Who told you to do that? We don't authorize you to take those Shilas, you gotta put them back. And so, their travel plans were not to go back to Nepal, so they gave all those Shilas to this devotee from, I'm so sorry, I forgot his name, who was kind of preaching in Nepal. And,
Patri?
No, I wouldn't remember him. It's another person. But he said, so I was thinking okay, I'll bring them all back, but why don't I first go to Aindra Prabhu and ask him if he wants any of these Shilas? And so he said that those two devotees kind of came in front of Aindra, you know, and Aindra kind of like a little mockingly like scolded them, like, you've been very bad boys. And they were, and he said that they were like these like towering like Russian guys.
Yeah.
And Aindra was like, in stature, he was much shorter, but in front of Aindra, they're kind of like, really like shy and afraid, and Aindra's like speaking so strong. And he said that, so he went and he brought all these Shilas to Aindra Prabhu, like, would you like any of these Shilas? And he said, Aindra, like, so carefully and slowly and meticulously, he like looked at each one. He would like, kind of like very conscientiously looked at each Shila and then conscientiously put it to the side. And then he took the next one and like studying it and, you know, put it to the side. And one by one, and he said, at a certain point, I understood he's going to take all of them. And then he took all of them.
This was early on?
I can't say when that was.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I forgot the devotee's name. Oh, so the thing I was going to say is, just like one story about Aindra being really nice was, he was preaching to somebody about one of the lunar months that comes in the summertime. Like maybe it starts in April or May.
Vaishaka is one of the sacred months.
That's it. Thank
And
you.
your champak flower.
It must have been champak flower every day. See? Thank you so much.
There's a Mahatma, Vaishak Mas Mahatma of the Padma Purana.
So I must have heard Aindra preach that.
Yeah.
And I went to when the month started, I went to the flower lollies and I asked them, and like no one had that kind of flower.
If the season starts earlier, like this year, it's kind of early. Like the temple opening in 1975 was April 20th. Now it's so they really kick in towards the end of the end of April, and May is really their month. So like to get them at the beginning of April, it's a rarity, and you have to pay extra money.
Yeah, so I went to Aindra Prabhu's room and I said, like, Prabhu, you said if we offer the champak flower, and I'm from this hellish city, I didn't know what a champak flower was, and so I said, hellish city, excuse me, I don't mean any disrespect. and so
You've been away too long, man.
And so I asked him, I said, Prabhu, like, what is a champak flower? Like, how do I find one? And then he clearly had like some garlands that he was like preparing to offer, and just with a huge smile, he took a champak flower and he gave me like one champak flower. And so
Srila Prabhupada, in his visit to Vishakhapatnam in 1972, there's a picture on the back of one of the original trilogy silver hardbound Krishna books. And he was given this flower, and he just held it like this for, the rest of the tour of the sacred grounds of the temple. He said, this color, this flower is beautiful to look at, and the aroma is wonderful, and it's the color of Lord Chaitanya. I didn't see that photo. Champak flowers.
Wow. There was anyway, this is like, I've been telling Prabhu's some of the stories. This is one I didn't tell you yet. There was another very beautiful senior devotee there in Vrindavan, Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu, who I would like spend time with. And Bhuvaneshwar himself was like very senior, lifelong brahmachari. He did the Raj Bhog offering every day for decades.
He took it up after Vibhu Chaitanya.
After
was
Vibhu
unable to
Chaitanya.
do it.
He did it so steady every day, and rock solid. I was kind of associated with him because he had me reading books to him every day. And so he asked me at one point, like, he said, I really need to ask Aindra Prabhu something. And so he's like, can you tell Aindra Prabhu?
The two of them shared a room together. I believe it was room 90, the corner room in the Gurukul, like in the late 80s.
Wow.
Interesting roommates.
Interesting roommates for sure. And he said that they went to, when Aindra first came to India in the mid 80s, they went to Kumbh Mela together too.
It would have been 89.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Nice, so many details. So Bhubaneswar said, I need some advice from Aindra Prabhu. Like, can you ask him tell him that I want to talk to him? And so after the kirtan, maybe that day, I said to Aindra Prabhu, like, Prabhu, Bhubaneswar asked to speak with you. And he had his harmonium, and he had finished the kirtan, and he was ready to go back upstairs, and he's like, okay, let's go right now. And he just went to Bhubaneswar's room. The two of them sat there. I was like hoping to get away with staying in that conversation, but Aindra just spoke a little small talk, and then he said something to kind of excuse himself, like, okay, I have to go now. And then I said, wait, Bhubaneswar, didn't you want to ask him something? And then Bhubaneswar said, yeah, alone. And then I had to leave. But afterwards, Bhubaneswar said, he said he really helped me. He said he really helped me. All right. I've told you guys so many of my stories.
We're also here, we're not the guys.
That's true. Okay, there was one time when there were some devotees that they had been associated with ISKCON, and then whatever, they kind of took shelter outside. They had some outside influences. Aindra was still kind of very nice with them, friendly with them. And so they would have conversations after the kirtan in the alleyway. And so they asked, someone asked the question, Aindra Prabhu, how can you recognize a genuine sadhu? And then someone said, well, that's not, you shouldn't ask that. That's good. That's not a good question. It's too political, because one institution. And I said, no, that's a bona fide question. That's a good question. It's the same like talking about who's a bona fide guru. That's a legitimate thing to talk about. We should talk about that. And so he quoted the first line of Sat Goswami Astika. Krishna. He said, so the genuine sadhu is the person that is always chanting in kirtan and dancing. And then clearly that wasn't the answer that this devotee wanted to hear, and because it makes it pretty clear. And so she said, okay, but what if that personality is chanting so and so much japa every day, some tremendous amount of japa, and what if that person is doing Govardhan every day? And isn't that also a sadhu? And Aindra said, okay, yes, but chanting japa is not the Yuga Dharma. And doing Govardhan Parikram is not the Yuga Dharma. Doing Harinam Sankirtan is the Yuga Dharma. And there were other discussions then too. You say something?
Stay there. Play off each other. The biography of Aindra, which was a genuine long labor of love, I believe from conception to fruition, was a good 10 years.
Yeah.
It's very nice, especially till the time of Aindra's coming to Vrindavan. Very nice chronological in order, telling of the events of his appearance in this world. This is the 72nd observance of his appearance in this world on this day in 1953. And let's see, I'll pull this up. Anyway, yes. And Prabhupada is writing a letter early on, like 1968 or 9, and he's saying that there are many candidates all over the world who are waiting to receive this message. And just like all of you, you were sent to take your birth in various parts of the world so that you would be able to come forward when I came and help me. So Aindra was such, I'm kind of skipping the thought here, extraordinary personality that Bridgebasis in general, quote unquote, the average townsfolk, and then all of the leaders, mahants of the various temples, religious, devotional institutions, they all recognized Aindra and gave him the love and respect that he actually earned. You go to other parts of India, and there might be some racism based on, what they consider to be a good birth or not good birth. But I never saw that with anyone who was born in India, how they related with Aindra. It was just like, wow. And even more than that, they saw him as the natural leader and the representation of their Supreme Majesty Srimati Radharani. So, with that statement that Srila Prabhupada has reiterated many times, Aindra took his birth in a place called, well, he was born in Washington, D.C. to go to the hospital, but he grew up in a place called Haymarket, Virginia, which is now a big kind of suburb of Washington, D.C. But at that time, it was very rural, and Aindra grew up on a farm which was bordering the Manassas Civil War battlefield. Virginia was like right on the cusp of the Civil War, the so-called Mason-Dixon line between the North and the South. That was just where Aindra made his appearance. And his family were musicians and philosophical thinkers and kind of rebels, and I think that would have had some bearing, like your family traits. But the musical immersion that Aindra had served him very well later when he took up the cause of the Harinam Sankirtan movement. Of course, Aindra was multi-talented. So he's writing very nice handwriting with his right hand, but then when he would paint, you think you're gonna write, and he'd play the harmonium with his right hand. One point is that Aindra, he played stringed instruments and wind instruments. He played banjos, guitars, clarinets, but seeing that the harmonium is such a widespread instrument used in ISKCON, he self-taught himself how to play it. And if anyone would ever go to Aindra, can you teach me how to play the harmonium? He'd say, I'm not going to teach you that. You know, any man who's a man will figure it out for himself. You say you have to get your own harmonium, don't rely on the temple one. Bring it in your room, and you have to do the hard work of figuring the thing out. But Aindra, when he would paint, there's maybe, what would be the number, like maybe half a dozen to a dozen of Govardhan Shilas that Aindra painted for devotees. He'd paint with his left hand. Yeah. And he was a carpenter, he could do woodwork, he could do sculpting, he could do electrical work, he could do all kinds of things. Just amazing personality. So, anyway, if you haven't read the biography, read it. So Aindra, he joined at the age of 20 in 1973, and he became part of the Washington, D.C. Yatra, which included, at that time, a downtown townhouse in the very trendy area, kind of like what would have been considered the West Village of Washington, D.C., DuPont Circle Avenue, Q Street Temple. And that's where Aindra had his first experience of public Harinam Sankirtan. Aindra would talk about the letter that Prabhupada wrote to the then temple president, Damodar Das, who was one of the early New York devotees, very nice, mild-mannered, gentleman devotee, that I'm very pleased with your 14-hour Sankirtan days. We do that on the weekend. And Aindra got such an exhilaration from doing Harinam Sankirtan. And then later, when the push for book distribution became, let's say, the priority in the movement, Aindra found himself on the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party, more or less because of the inspiration and personal relationship he had with Vishnu Jan Swami. That's what inspired Aindra to be a part of and that program. And in the early days of Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan, you see the beautiful footage. There's a few videos and mostly photographs of Radha Damodar, who now reside in Nagari. Lalita Vishaka, they came later. They weren't there at that time. They were just set up on college campuses in the the main area, the rotunda, and just have like ecstatic Harinam and Prashad distribution. Aindra would take part in that, but then later that became like minimized, and it was just book distribution. And Aindra felt a disparity with that. And even there was a situation where Aindra wanted to stop his obligatory book distribution early on a Saturday night to join the Harinam party, like at 6 o'clock. And the Sankirtan leader was saying, no, that this is a dharma. If you're going against my order to, stop your book distribution to go on Harinam Sankirtan. And that kind of really opened up Aindra's critical thinking in a big way. He's not going to just take things on face value that an authority is saying this. And then ultimately, when Radha Damodar disbanded and more or less disintegrated, the movement had become more centered on making money in various ways. You can hear Aindra telling the story. I think there's one you could look up on YouTube, Be Pure and Do the Needful. And this really disturbed Aindra very, very, very much. And he made a plan to go to India and do traveling Sankirtan in India. But to go to India, especially in those days, you have to fly from New York. There weren't so many flights to India from other American cities. It was very difficult and very expensive. So when he got here in 1981, and I fortunately was here at that time when he joined, when he came here, we were in a building that no longer exists, 846 7th Avenue, which was a three-story and a penthouse for the zonal initiating guru. The penthouse. Yeah. Won't go into that too much. Which was between 53rd and 54th Street on 7th Avenue. Just 7-8 blocks from Times Square. You know, it's like you walk out the door and bam, there it is. You just kind of like roll down the hill and you're in Times Square. So when Aindra came there, he said, wow, this is like, you know, it's the city that never sleeps, and you can do Harinam here as much as possible all the time. There's always tons of. Aindra made a decision to stay, and at that time, very favorable. There was Tulsan Krishna, there was Gormarupa, there was Hansarupa, there was Pankajanava, very, very nice. Chataratma was now in Alachua, and his wife Pashupati. I think their first son, Namananda, was just a Ram is here. And it was a very favorable family thing. And yeah, what are you going to do here, Aindra? I'm just going to go on Harinam every day. Welcome. And then we moved here to Skimmelhorn Street in just like a year or so later, in the fall of 1982. This was a synagogue. You see these pews, the wooden seats that are lining the temple. But that they had ones with cushions, and like on the back of the thing, you know, you have the slot where you put the religious book, you know, and it was a linoleum floor. So that was Aindra's first service with the other devotees, ripping all of this out and making way for the, making for the altar. You see how the altar still looks like a Jewish synagogue, you know, where Radha Govinda is, that's where the Torah was, and they had chairs where the rabbis would sit. And the actual altar, you know, the spikes or the poles, and now the Oriental Gopi panels are on. Aindra built all of that, built that altar with himself. And Aindra's first residence was in the Winter Tulsi house, and it was just bare bricks and the white stucco that is on the walls there. He did that. And then later he constructed his cart, his Harinam truck, all of the different acoustic panels. He made that, which is now the secondary place where the Sunday feast is served, work area. And it's also it's important to note at that time, the Krishna hall, top floor and ground floor were a bingo hall. And the temple was getting a very needy $10,000 a month in rent, and they're smoking cigarettes, bingo, and people coming to play bingo, their language was, standard New York City ghetto, If there was if 10 words were spoken, if 1 or 2 were not curse words, that was the. So and then the bingo people would be complaining, why does he doing this, and the smell from the polyurethane. So in the very difficult circumstances, he made his truck and this and that. And anyway, I don't want to describe too much. Anyway, he decided to leave in 1985, the end of 1985, and he again was going to go to India and make a similar beautiful vehicle and travel around India. But then when he came to Vrindavan, it became apparent, and it became apparent to Aindra from various super mundane methods of revelation that his calling was to fulfill Prabhupada's desire to make 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. So I consider myself very, very fortunate to have met Aindra early on here in New York City, and that forged a very powerful, tangible friendship that lasted a lifetime and an eternity. And Aindra invited me to visit Vrindavan as much as possible. Up until that time, I was a temple collector. Can you imagine? I was at a mandatory quota to bring in $1,519.83.84 a week, and I'm in the movement for like 5 or 6 years. I'm going, and I'll withhold the names to protect the who told me that. Okay, we're sending you to Davin Fest. It's like a week and a half in Mayapur, then a week.
3 weeks.
3 weeks plus 2 days. Before and afterwards.
Oh my God.
To prove your sincerity. Zonal guru. So us people come on average than we did prior. So I just kind of threw down, said, I'll keep collecting the money, but I'm going to every year. We like it. We like it. '86, he had no spiritual. No, that's not true. But he's saying like that. So one particular year in 1990, he inspired me to stay beyond my designated temple allowed visit, which got me in trouble with the temple president of the GBC. And he almost got me to the point where I was going to throw my ticket away. But I chickened out at the last minute, and if I lose the ticket, then I have no money, Yeah. So he would have me read with him in his room. And there's no Russian devotees, there's no big hoopla around Aindra. When the Russian devotees got wind of Aindra, that's when his fame like doubled, tripled, and quintuplated, and just exploded. But there was no Canaan land at that time. Everything was just literally the four perimeter walls around the Krishna Mandir and the guest house and the guru. If we ate a feast in the temple room, everybody would take their leaf and throw it over the wall, into the Katie land on the other people's property. And even when I remember Mayapur Festival and there's visiting devotees, we all ate in the Gurukul Prashadam room. There was enough room. That's how small things were. So it was very nice. Aindra, like 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon, and then bring it back. There was just very sparse